Hi guys, so I thought I'd do a bit of a video, sort of buyer's guide review on this 6.5 Chevy V8 diesel turbo engine conversion. So, as I know, when I bought this, there wasn't really a lot of information out there. There was a lot of bad information, I know that much. But I joined a few of the Facebook groups, they were pretty helpful. But yeah, I sort of struggled to find a bit of information about this motor, the 6.5, specifically the optimizer, which we'll get into shortly. So this is in a 2000 Nissan Patrol. It was an old ZD30 manual 5-speed. Unfortunately, the engine let go, blew up I think in 2015. The previous owner had it. So then he was weighing up options, what to do with the engine, whether to put a TD in or whatnot. I think he just wanted a V8. So he went down to, there's a company down in WA, pretty local to where I am, in Brunswick, that do these, specifically do these conversions. Now they do remanufactured Chevy V8 diesel engines, and they do the optimizer, which is what this one is, and that's like a brand new crate engine. And they also do the P400, which is probably like the best revision of this engine. And that one's, yeah, they're pretty rare, they are. Very rare in the States, I know that much. So I'll just give you a bit of feedback on, this is just my experience on owning it. I've had it for 14 months. The cab chassis has got 313,000 Ks on it, and this motor's got just 70,000 Ks on it. I think it's due another service in like 300-400 Ks. So I serviced this as per the owner's service book from Brunswick, which is every 5,000 Ks. And it's pretty much every 10,000 change the fuel filter, every 5,000 the oil and the inline fuel filter. So this is fully mechanical with the DB2 pump, not the electronic DS4, which was, I think Chevy brought that one out in '94, which is what pretty much is responsible for giving this thing a bad rep. So this engine was used in all the Humvees in the military over in the US, and also it was used in a few marine applications, I believe like tugboats and stuff like that. So, you know, that speaks a bit about the engine. It's in quite a few platforms. So we'll just touch on some of the things that you've got to be wary with this, and some of the things that you can do to sort of fix the inherent engineering issues from General Motors. So basically, let's talk about the first thing that gave these such a bad rep. And they've not got a great reputation over here, to be honest, but I think that's a lot of that's just because they're misunderstood, because it is a Chevy, but it's the new cast block. I think a lot of the issues were around when they went, and I think it was 92, 93 had the mechanical fuel injection pump, which is what this has got, the DB2, and then in 94 they went to the electronic pump, which caused a few issues because they had the PMD, which is the pump mounted driver, and obviously that was mounted on the pump, and the injection pump is like right down in the center of the V, and it gets pretty hot down there, and I believe they were just frying themselves. So they ended up, General Motors were replacing the pumps because they thought the injection pumps had gone bad, and they were basically, nothing wrong with the pump, it was just this electronic module on the side of the pump. And then I believe General Motors probably didn't really put their hands up to it, and a lot of the owners were a bit sour. And then it ended up the aftermarket fixed it and brought out PMD relocation kits. So they basically took that pump mounted driver off there and put it like either on the front grille for airflow, or even in some cases I've seen some of the guys in the US have got them in the glove box, or people have relocated them elsewhere, the engine bay, but with a big heatsink, aluminium heatsink on them. Yeah, so basically the injection pump issues is not an issue with this motor, particularly in the Brunswick diesels, because they only use the DB2 fully mechanical pumps, which probably not as easy to tune because they've got a fuel screw rather than downloading a tune or a map on them, like what a lot of people do with the DS4 pumps. Engine blocks, well, that's a freaking nightmare. I've looked at heaps of YouTube videos, heaps of research on US diesel truck forums. It's crazy. But basically, General Motors had issues with the engine block cracking due to inherent issues with the cooling design. The rear cylinder number 8 runs really hot at the back, because that's where the turbo pipe used to be on these centre mount intakes. So the back of the engine used to run really hot. They used to get cracking issues. The heads used to crack in between the valve seats. And then in 2000, when General Motors went to producing the Duramax, I think it was 2001, Chevy, General Engine Products took over the casting and production of these motors in 2000. They basically fixed a lot of the issues with them. They added different things into the metal in the casting blocks to prevent the cracking. I think they added more moly into the iron of the blocks, make them more robust. Thicker deck on them, firing deck. I think they added additional webbing and stuff. They basically improved the block and the cylinder heads, so they didn't have any of the inherent cracking issues that the old General Motors had. So you've got the issues with the injection pump, that's all fixed with the mechanical pump. The optimizer is the optimizer and the P400 are the ones that have got the basically upgraded revised block, which wasn't cast by General Motors. It was done by General Engine Products, GEP, which they used in all the military applications and marine applications. One of the things with these is the harmonics is pretty piss poor on them. So you've got the harmonic balancer, which is notorious for going bad. It just perishes and you have to keep an eye on it when you change the oil. Or to fix that, you can get a fluid dampener installed, and then you never have to worry about it for the life of the engine. And also on the front for the fan belt, it's got a metal ring with a rubber inside rubber filled pulley. This rubber deteriorates and splits from the outer metal ring, and then it can basically make like this knocking sound. So that's another, same again, you can fix that by putting on a billet aluminium pulley. Same again, then you fit and forget, never have to worry about it then. This engine has still got the standard harmonic balancer on it and the rubber infilled pulley. I check them every time it's serviced, and there doesn't seem to be any cracking or deterioration on them. Don't know if it's because we're in WA, there's no salt and shit on the roads, but that seems to be in good condition. I will eventually, if I keep this, change them over, but you just keep on top of it, just keep an eye on it, it's fine. So that's sorted with the harmonics. Talked about the engine blocks, and that's, like I say, you can go and search online for that. It's a minefield, but basically if you're looking for one, you want to make sure you've got the optimizer or the P400. Then the lift pumps. So the lift pumps are pretty piss poor. I've upgraded the lift pump on this. When I first got this, I would sit on the freeway at about 100 k's, and it would surge. It was a pain in the ass. It'd just back and forth surging. I thought, oh, I'll just throw, and the original lift pump on it was a right little puny flow through one. And I thought, oh, I'll just upgrade that. So I upgraded that to the Carter Black USA, I believe it's USA made, it says that on the box anyway. Carter and Black lift pump, 14 to 16 PSI, that one was. Pulled the old one out, put that new one in, and then ever since then it starts easier, and I've had no surging issues. So obviously it was not getting the PSI to the injection pump, so I've got that installed on it. So that's one thing to keep an eye on, is the little crappy lift pumps. So you can just change them out. I think it was like $200 or something. Got it off eBay. So that fixed that issue. Another one is the cooling, same again, but apparently it's to do with the block there. The back of the heads, as the coolant comes in through the bottom of the deck, flows through, gets poured out through the top, and it pretty much just cools the front 2 cylinders more than the back. And then the back of the heads, there's no outlet for it, so it builds up stagnant cooling there, and you can get hot spots at the back of the head, which is obviously an issue because the back cylinders run a bit hotter as well, where it's all crammed in, you don't get much airflow back there. So you can get an imbalance in the cooling of them. You can get a kit where you basically just tee off the back of the heads and flow it back into the suction side on the water pump, so it'll pull that coolant out of the back of the heads in that stagnant spot. I haven't done that modification yet. I've had absolute no issues with cooling whatsoever. I've had this on the beach up in Monkey Mire, which people in WA will probably know. I've been up there, it was like 42 degrees on the beach, and this thing was just going for it. I had no issues whatsoever, and that was fully loaded with 5 people in the car. So no issues with cooling whatsoever. I did install a intercooler fan, not just mainly because I thought I wanted to add that as an extra. If I'm on the beach or if I notice the EGT is getting a bit high, I can just flick that on, and it does help. It does reduce it a bit. But this thing is pretty in a detuned state anyway. It's not running much fuel. It's a pretty clean burn, unless you load the engine up in 4th, stick your foot down and wait, because the turbo's pretty laggy, but we'll get onto the turbos shortly. So that's the cooling side of it, what you've got to keep an eye on. That's pretty much all the issues with them, really. And like I say, a lot of them have been fixed with this optimizer, but I think people just still think they're the old crappy Chevy that splits blocks and cracks heads. Right, so now let's talk about the good bits on the motor. So engine life, they reckon the motors are good for 500,000 Ks, and then they reckon they get a bit sloppy from one of these sticky valves, etc., stuff like that. So they're not a million kilometre or million mile motor like the Cummins and stuff like that, but still pretty good life. And obviously it's like anything, people have got more Ks out of them, people have got less, depends how you treat them, I suppose, with everything, and how you look after them. So fuel use, pretty impressive. EU mixed reviews, but I've only got good things to say about the fuel use on this. I've come from a 105 4.5 FZFE, which was absolutely shocking, but this thing, since it's 6.5 and turbo on a run, I'll put some pictures up. It was fully loaded, 5 people in the car, and sitting on 108 Ks, I got 13.2 litres per 100. I've had about 750 Ks out of both the main tank and the sub tank before. That was with a little bit of mixed driving in it as well. So the fuel usage is pretty good. I've only towed a small trailer a couple of times, so I've not really towed anything big, so I can't really give you any real world figures on that. This has got 4.3 diffs. It does rev a touch high. It sits at about 2.4, doing about 108 Ks, probably 110s, or it's just a touch over 110s, like 2,500 revs. So it's probably on the high side, but it still returns good fuel mileage. It's got 35-inch tyres and 4.3 diffs. I did look at trying to upgrade them to one of the 3.9s or something, but this has got the H260 rear diff, so you're limited to what you've got. I think you can only get like 4.1s and 4.3s, but it's pretty good off-road. The gearing is perfect for it, and it'd probably be perfect if you were towing as well, because it gets them, you can cruise, and it's got the revs right smack bang in the torque range. But cruising at 110 plus speeds is probably just a little bit too much. Motor's revving quite high. So that's the fuel usage. Around town, 15 15, 16, depending on how you're playing with it. Other good thing with the motor, super easy to work on. Like, I'm no mechanic, I know my way around the motor a little bit, and I can pretty much do anything on it with the manuals. I've got the manual for the engine and the Haynes manual for the Patrol, and pretty much gets me through everything really. So yeah, like I say, super easy to work on, relatively cheap for parts. I get, compared to a modern diesel anyway, I get all my parts and I need them from Rock Auto. So on some of the Facebook, there's 2 Facebook group pages, Aussie 6.5 and then an Australian 6.5. On there, in there, if you search in there, they've got like a parts list that you can order everything for this engine through Rock Auto, and it comes here pretty quick, like 4 days, 5 days, something like that, and you got your parts. So that's not too bad. So you ain't got to worry about parts or anything. And like filters and oil filters, you can get them from super cheap. I'll give you, I think it's a Z24, I think. Same with the fuel filters, because it just uses the standard Nissan fuel filter. Emissions, which is pretty sweet. No EGRs, no DPFs, no CATs. Just is what it is. It is running a catch can. What else we got? The sound. I'll do some footage of the sound, because how many videos I've seen have done reviews on these things and you never hear the sound. It's just sacrilege. Sound is mint, especially on the overrun going down hills. They just sound so unique, and I think that was one of the things for me was I really did want a V8 and just something different. It's not a lot of people know too much about them, so I want to do this video. And people just think, oh yeah, they're a load of shit, but they're not. And like all motors, they've got their issues, got the problems. But like I say, this is just my experience, what I found with it, and it's been superb. Power. So you probably already know power's it's not great, but there is a lot of tuning. There's a company over in the States, Quadstar Tuning, and they've got some pretty nice turbos for them, like a Super 60, Super 54. Really wakes these things up. So I think stock power is like 205 brake horsepower and 440 foot-pounds or 650 Newton meters of torque. But the beauty with that is it just makes it straight off. My drive's pretty steep. First gear, it makes the torque so low, the bottom end. I literally just let my foot off the clutch and it'll just crawl up my drive. It's a pretty steep driveway. So yeah, the torque is nice, real nice and low down. So that's the power of it. Not great, but you can wind these things up, and I think most of them are running about 250 horse easily. And if this is making 200 brake horsepower with bugger all boost, like there's literally hardly any boost unless I really put my foot into it and load the engine up. On average, I'm like 2 to 3 psi. EGTs, my EGTs sit pretty much bang on in line with my revs, so 2.5, 250 degrees EGTs. It's pretty much bang on in line with my revs, so there's plenty of scope for more fuel. So mods, let's talk about mods. So it's got K&N air filter, intercooler with the fan, got the Carter black lift pump 14-16 psi, This is the stock, it's not been fattled with. This is the stock turbo that you get from the Brunswick conversions. I think it's a Garrett, it's a genuine Garrett GT3582 rear housing, I believe. And then I've got I don't know if it's a 2 3/4 inch. It's not. It's definitely not a 3 inch. I would like put a 3 inch downpipe on it, but you just have to mash the bulkhead in a bit, and it goes straight from there into a full 4 inch. I made that myself. I just got ordered the bends and the straight bits off eBay, tacked them together, and got my brother weld them up for me. I'll show you that. Just because the stock system was, I think it was a 3 inch, but it was the crimp bends, so it was all squashed. It looked like a plumber had done it with his bloody pipe bender. So I bought the mandrel bends and matched that system and got that all to work perfect. So that's the mods. Fuel, like I say, that's totally standard. I've not turned that up. With the turbos, pretty hot topic at the minute. A lot of people are trying out different things, especially in the States, and tuning them up. And I think from what I've seen, one of the best turbos with the sound as well is the Wholeset HX40. There's a few people running them. They sound awesome, and they seem to make boost from right off the go, and easily make 15-20 psi. And they reckon with these, especially with the optimizer, you're safe up to about 20 psi boost. Like I say, this thing runs nowhere near that, 7 or 8. And 20 psi with this motor is probably around about your limit. And if you're going a bit more, they recommend, or even at 20 psi, I think on Quadstar they recommend you stud the heads. But I mean, the thing, I want to turn the fuel up, so I want a bit more power, but I want that turbo to light up a bit sooner. But it just returns so good fuel mileage. It's like, I don't know, it's great. And I don't think it's lacking in power as it is now. I'd say it was around 180, 200 horsepower. That's what it feels like. I wouldn't say it was much more. But yeah, it's just that bottom end torque. It's awesome. So that's pretty much the mods. Talk about a few of the issues with them. Like I say, if you get the optimizer, you're pretty much ruling out a lot of the inherent issues that the old General Motors engines had. Because you can't compare the two. Let's sum it up. What do I reckon? Would I buy another one? Yes, I would buy another. Would I pay 36 grand for the conversion, which is what the previous owner paid for this back in 2015? No way. I reckon for that kind of money, I don't think you can look past the Cummins. If you wanted an old diesel, I'd go with the 12 valve Cummins, if you can get your hands on one over here anyway. If you wanted power, LS2, that'd be nice. Maybe a Barry. So if you want power and for cheapness, probably go with the LS or the Barry. Old diesel, I'd probably go with the Cummins, or even the 4BT. They're about 180 horse. I feel like these are a bit of an enthusiast engine. So like, I bought it and I've done a lot of research on them. I know all the quirks and I know what to look out for with it. And yeah, I think you've really got to, if you buy one, you've really got to invest that time in researching about the motor and finding out, just modifying it, making it super reliable. But I mean, yeah, I love the sound of it. Cold start to mint. I just love the rattly goodness. It's really nice. It's sort of like a TD42, but on freaking steroids. It's mint. So yeah, that if the conversions are a bit cheaper and you're doing it yourself and you wanted a V8, that's one of the big things. You want an old school pushrod V8, and they're pretty relatively cheap to pick up the engines, then go for it. But I do think there are probably better conversions out there, but they do the job, and I really enjoy it. I love it. I love working on it as well. Alright, that's pretty much sums up this video. Hope you enjoyed it, guys, and I just wanted to make it to help out people in the future who are looking at getting one if they're on the market, or maybe even doing the conversion themselves. I'm not going to get into the whole Brunswick debate. I think that's been done to death, and you know, like anything, everyone knows the squeaky wheel gets the grease on it, so whatever. But this has been awesome for me, and I've looked after it since I've had it and can't fault it. So yeah, if you like this video or it's helped you out, please share, like, subscribe, all that goodness, and see you on another video. Cheers, guys.